All right, so we're diving into Da Vinci's The Last Supper today. And wow, I mean, this painting, it's been through a lot, but it's still considered a masterpiece centuries later.
It really has. And, the story behind it is pretty dramatic.
Oh, I bet.
It's a story of ambition rivalry, all about the power of art.
So let's start with Da Vinci himself.
Okay.
What was going on with him when he got the commission for The Last Supper? I mean, he wasn't exactly like the top artist of the moment, was he?
Well, he was a Florentine artist, right? But this was when Florence was under papal interdict.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, the church had cut the city off because of clashes with the Medici family. So no sacraments, no services.
Wow, that's a big deal.
It was a huge deal back then. Yeah. And for artists like Da Vinci, I mean, the church was their main patron.
Right.
So it really limited their opportunities. Plus, Da Vinci had already had some setbacks professionally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this interdict was really a tough time.
I can imagine.
And then Duke Ludovico Sforza of Milan offered him this commission. It was a chance for Da Vinci to kind of escape the turmoil in Florence and prove himself artistically.
So this was his big comeback moment.
Yeah, you could say that.
But wasn't painting The Last Supper kind of a common theme back then?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was doing something totally new.
You're right. It was a standard theme in religious art, especially in monasteries.
Right.
Artists before Da Vinci, they'd already established certain conventions for depicting it.
So what were like the rules he was working with?
Well, those earlier paintings, they're more like family portraits. Everyone's posed stiffly Jesus, and the apostles are just sitting there, and Judas, the betrayer, he's often like isolated, pushed away from the group.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there was a big emphasis on the divine, halos, formal poses, that kind of thing.
So why would Da Vinci pick this theme then if he was trying to make a statement?
Well, see, Da Vinci, he was all about capturing human experience,
Okay.
Instead of just a static supper scene, he chose the most dramatic moment. The instant when Jesus announces that one of them will betray him.
The turning point.
Exactly, the emotional gut punch.
Yeah.
And he uses every artistic tool to heighten that drama.
Like what?
Well, linear perspective, for example. It had been used before, but Da Vinci mastered it.
Okay.
He uses it in a way that draws your eye right to Jesus and makes you feel like you're in the room, feeling all that tension.
Wow. So he's not just painting a scene.
No.
He's pulling you into it.
Exactly.
I remember the source talked about breaking the fourth wall.
Right.
What does that even mean with a painting?
Well, think about it this way. In a play, the fourth wall is that invisible barrier between the actors and the audience.
Right.
But when an actor breaks the fourth wall, they look right at you, acknowledge that you're there watching.
Got it.
And Da Vinci, he does something similar in The Last Supper. He uses perspective to position you, the viewer, as if you're sitting at the table with Jesus and the apostles.
Really?
You're not just observing, you're part of the drama.
That's incredible.
It's really powerful.
No wonder this painting is so impactful.
Right.
It's like you're experiencing the betrayal firsthand.
Yeah, and the source also mentioned how meticulously Da Vinci portrayed each apostle.
Right.
How he gave each one a distinct personality.
So how did he do that?
Well, he was fascinated by human nature,
Okay.
The source mentions how he would study people in the market, watching their expressions, their gestures.
Really?
Yeah, and he brought that same attention to detail to the marriage. The Last Supper. Each apostle reacts to Jesus' announcement in their own way, showing their personality and their relationship with him.
So he's not just painting figures.
Nope.
They're individuals.
Individuals with stories.
Okay, give me an example. Who really stands out to you?
Well, look at John. He's often shown as young and gentle, right?
Yeah.
And in Da Vinci's painting, he's leaning back, almost relaxed.
Oh, really?
But there's a reason for that. According to the Gospel of John, Jesus had already told him about the betrayal privately.
So he already knew.
Exactly. So John, knowing the truth, he's at peace in the middle of all this chaos.
That's interesting.
Right.
What about Peter, the hot-headed one?
Peter.
Must not be taking it well.
No, he's not. He's leaning forward, his hand gripping John's shoulder like he's urgently asking, what did he say?
Oh, well.
But look closer. He's got a dagger subtly tucked behind his back.
What?
Yeah, Da Vinci is foreshadowing Peter's attempt to defend Jesus later in the story.
Wow.
Tiny detail. Brilliant storytelling.
That's amazing.
And then there's Judas the betrayer. It's interesting that Da Vinci put him right there with the other apostles instead of isolating him.
Yeah, that's different from the other paintings we were talking about.
It is. It's a bold choice, and it adds to the suspense because at this moment, none of the apostles except John know who the betrayer is.
Right.
So they're all under suspicion, but Da Vinci still makes Judas stand out, creates a sense of unease around him. His face is in shadow. He's clutching a bag of silver, the price of his betrayal so tightly you can see the veins in his hand. And notice this, he's knocking over a salt cellar.
Wait, even the spilled salt has meaning.
Oh, absolutely. Spilling salt was a bad omen. Da Vinci uses this little detail to foreshadow Judas's doomed fate and the sense of loss that will soon consume the apostles.
Wow. Da Vinci missed nothing.
Hidden every element tells the story.
So let's talk about technique.
Okay.
The source mentioned he experimented with new techniques for this.
Yeah, he was always pushing boundaries. Most Florentine artists were using fresco painting on wet plaster.
Right.
But Da Vinci decided to experiment with oil paints.
And that didn't go so well, right?
Unfortunately, no. While oil paints allowed for more detail and luminosity, they weren't as stable on the wall.
Right.
The paint started to flake and deteriorate not long after he finished it.
So the masterpiece we see today,
Yeah.
it's really just a shadow of what it was.
That's right. And it's not just the oil paints. The Last Supper has survived centuries of, I guess you could say, abuse.
Abuse.
Yeah, from the heat and humidity of the kitchen right behind the wall to a door that was literally cut into the painting.
No way.
Yeah, then there was neglect, some questionable restoration attempts, and even wartime bombings.
It's amazing any of the original painting still exists.
It truly is, and that's why those copies made under Da Vinci's supervision are so valuable.
Right.
They give us a glimpse of what it might have looked like in its original glory.
So we have those copies to thank for preserving some of its legacy.
We do.
It's amazing to think about how impactful this one painting has been for centuries. It's like a cultural icon.
It really is, and what's remarkable is that even though it depicts this specific Christian event, its themes of betrayal, loyalty, and human drama,
Right.
they're universal.
You don't have to be religious to understand the emotions in those faces.
It taps into something we can all relate to.
Exactly.
And that's one reason why it's been so widely reproduced and reinterpreted. You see it everywhere, from Renaissance art to modern advertising, even movies and TV shows.
You mentioned earlier Da Vinci being an innovator. The source mentioned oil paints, but also other groundbreaking techniques.
Yes, he used chiaroscuro and sfumato.
Okay, break those down for me.
Sure. Chiaroscuro is the dramatic use of light and shadow to create depth and a sense of drama.
Okay.
Da Vinci uses it masterfully in The Last Supper. Think about how Judas is shrouded in shadow, foreshadowing his betrayal, adding to the tension. Then there are the figures bathed in light, like Jesus, drawing our attention to their importance.
So he's using light to direct our gaze.
Exactly like a visual spotlight.
I like that. Visual spotlight. Okay, what about sfumato?
Sfumato comes from the Italian word for smoke.
Okay.
It's a technique for softening the transition between colors and tones, creating a hazy, almost dreamlike effect.
Interesting.
Look at the faces of the apostles. They have this incredible realism and softness, almost like a photograph.
Right.
That's sfumato.
I can see why he was considered such a genius.
He was.
I mean, his understanding of light and shadow, his attention to detail, it's amazing.
He was a true Renaissance man, always studying the world around him. He would dissect bodies to understand anatomy, experiment with pigments and painting methods. Yeah, he was driven by curiosity and a desire to push the boundaries of art.
Which brings us to another point from the source. This idea that the Last Supper's fame might be more about the portrayal of betrayal than the sacred meal itself.
Right.
What do you think about that?
It's a really fascinating question.
It is.
Some art historians believe the painting's enduring appeal lies in that powerful depiction of human drama,
Yeah.
the moment of betrayal, the shock, the confusion, the hurt.
Yeah.
It resonates across cultures and time. It's a universal experience.
It is.
The source mentions two art historians, Professors Gilbert and Brandt, who have different takes on this.
Right. What are their views?
Professor Gilbert suggests that where you see the Last Supper might influence its meaning. If you saw it in its original setting in the refectory of a monastery, you might feel a stronger sense of the sacred meal.
Okay.
But if you view it in a museum or as a reproduction stripped of that religious context,
Yeah.
the theme of betrayal might stand out more.
That makes sense.
Professor Brandt, on the other hand, argues that Da Vinci was skilled enough to convey both meanings at the same time.
Wow.
The painting works on multiple levels. You can engage with the religious and human aspects of the story.
So it's not an either-or situation.
Exactly. It's a multi-layered story. And the meaning you get from it depends on your own perspective.
And that's what makes it so powerful.
It doesn't give you easy answers or a single interpretation. It challenges you to think, to feel, to question your own assumptions about art history, even yourself.
Speaking of uncovering new layers of meaning, the source mentioned that the painting's many restorations have actually helped us understand it better.
Right.
How is that even possible?
Well, over the centuries, there have been so many attempts to restore the Last Supper, some well-intentioned but ultimately damaging.
How so?
Layers of varnish and overpainting obscured Da Vinci's original brushstrokes and colors, distorting its appearance.
So they were trying to fix what wasn't broken.
In a way, yes, but more recently, art restorers have taken a much more scientific and meticulous approach. Using advanced techniques, they've painstakingly removed those layers of overpainting, revealing Da Vinci's original work with amazing clarity.
It's like peeling back time.
It is like getting closer to the artist's original vision.
So what have they discovered?
We've gained new insights into Da Vinci's working methods, his use of color, his incredible attention to detail.
Wow.
For example, the recent restorations have revealed subtle nuances in the apostles' expressions, the intricate folds of their garments, the delicate interplay of light and shadow.
Like the painting is coming back to life.
Exactly.
We talked earlier about those copies of the Last Supper that were made.
Right.
I remember the source mentioning a story about the French king Louis XII. Didn't he want to take the painting back to France with him?
He did. He loved the painting so much that he wanted to literally cut the wall out of the refectory and take it back with him.
Talk about an art heist.
I know, right?
So what happened?
Well, of course, that wasn't really feasible. So Da Vinci ended up creating a copy for the king, and there are at least 2 other copies known to have been painted under his supervision.
Wow.
These copies, while not perfect replicas, offer valuable insights into the original, especially the areas that have been severely damaged over time.
Like missing pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly, helping us reconstruct the lost beauty of the original.
And they also tell us about Da Vinci's workshop.
They do. They raise intriguing questions about how his workshop operated, the role his assistants played in creating such massive works.
It's amazing to think that a painting as iconic and well-studied as The Last Supper still holds mysteries.
It does, and that's the beauty of art. It's a journey of discovery, a conversation between the past and present, between the artist's intention and our own interpretation.
It really is. It's just amazing that it's still around, after all that.
It is, and that's why those copies that were made under Da Vinci's supervision, they're so incredibly valuable. They give us a glimpse of what the painting might have looked like,
Oh, so like in its original glory?
Yeah, exactly. There are details that are lost in the original.
Oh, really?
That we can only see in the copies.
So we have those copies to thank for preserving at least some of its legacy. I mean, it's amazing to think about the impact this one painting has had, over the centuries.
It's true. It's become a cultural icon.
It really has.
And what's remarkable is that even though it depicts this Christian event,
Right.
the themes are universal, the betrayal, the loyalty, human drama.
You don't have to be religious to feel what's going on in those faces.
Exactly. It taps into something deeply human that we can all relate to.
And that's probably why it's been reinterpreted so many times, right?
Yeah, exactly. We see it everywhere, from Renaissance art to modern advertising campaigns, even movies and TV shows.
You mentioned earlier that Da Vinci was a bit of an innovator.
Right.
The source talked about the oil paint.
Uh-huh.
But it also mentioned these other techniques that were groundbreaking at the time.
Yes, he used chiaroscuro and sfumato.
Okay, now break those down for me.
Okay, so chiaroscuro, that's the dramatic use of light and shadow to create depth and theatricality.
Gotcha.
And Da Vinci uses this masterfully in The Last Supper. Think about how Judas is shrouded in shadow.
Right.
It foreshadows his betrayal and adds to the tension of the scene.
Yeah.
Then you have the figures bathed in light, like Jesus, drawing our attention to their importance.
He's using the light to tell us where to look.
Exactly like a visual spotlight.
Okay, I like that, the visual spotlight. What about sfumato?
Sfumato, it comes from the Italian word for smoke.
Interesting.
And it's this technique for softening the transition between colors and tones. It creates this hazy, almost dreamlike effect.
Okay.
Look at the faces of the apostles. They have this incredible realism and softness, almost like a photograph.
I see it.
That's Sfumato.
He really was a genius.
He was a true Renaissance man, constantly studying the world around him. He would dissect bodies to understand anatomy, experiment with pigments and painting methods.
Wow.
He was driven by this insatiable curiosity and a desire to push the boundaries of what was possible in art.
Which brings us back to another point raised in the source.
Okay.
This idea that The Last Supper's fame might be tied to its portrayal of betrayal more than the sacred meal itself.
Right.
What do you make of that?
It's a fascinating question.
It is.
Some art historians believe that the painting's enduring appeal is because of this powerful depiction of human drama.
Okay.
The moment of betrayal.
Yeah.
That feeling of sharp confusion hurt.
Yeah.
It's something that resonates across cultures and time periods.
It does.
It's a universal experience.
Right. The source mentioned these two art historians, Professors Gilbert and Brandt.
Yes.
And they have different takes on this.
They do. Professor Gilbert suggests that where you see The Last Supper might influence its meaning.
Okay. How so?
Well, if you saw it in its original setting in the refectory of a monastery,
Right.
you might feel a stronger sense of the sacred meal. But if you view it in a museum or as a reproduction,
Yeah, stripped of that religious context.
Exactly. The theme of betrayal might stand out more.
That makes sense.
Professor Brandt, on the other hand, argues that Da Vinci was skilled enough to convey both meanings simultaneously.
Wow.
The painting works on multiple levels,
Oh.
so you can engage with both the religious and human aspects of the story.
So it's not like an either or.
Exactly. It's a multi-layered story, and the meaning you take away from it depends on your own perspective.
And that's what makes it so powerful.
Absolutely. It doesn't offer easy answers or a single interpretation. It challenges you to think, to feel, to question your own assumptions about art history, even yourself.
Speaking of uncovering new layers of meaning, the source mentioned that the painting's many restorations have actually helped us understand it better.
Right.
How is that even possible?
Well, over the centuries, there have been all sorts of restoration attempts,
Yeah.
Some well-intentioned, but ultimately damaging.
Oh, no.
Yeah, layers of varnish and overpainting. They obscured Da Vinci's original brushstrokes and colors,
Right, so they were kind of distorting the painting.
Yeah, they were distorting its appearance.
So it's like they were trying to fix what wasn't broken.
In a way, yes. But more recently, art restorers have taken a much more scientific and meticulous approach.
Okay.
Using advanced techniques, they've painstakingly removed those layers of overpainting, revealing Da Vinci's original work with amazing clarity.
Wow, so it's like peeling back layers of time to get closer to his original vision.
Exactly.
So what have they found?
Well, we've gained new insights into Da Vinci's working methods, his use of color, his incredible attention to detail.
Give me some specifics.
Sure. For example, the recent restorations have revealed subtle nuances in the apostles' expressions, the intricate folds of their garments, the delicate interplay of light and shadow that Da Vinci created.
It's like the painting is coming back to life.
It really is. We talked earlier about those copies that were made of the Last Supper. I remember the source mentioned a story about the French king Louis XII.
Oh, yeah. Didn't he want to, take the painting back to France?
He did. He loved it so much that he wanted to literally cut the wall out of the refectory and take it back with him.
Talk about an art heist.
I know, right?
So what happened?
Well, of course, that wasn't feasible.
Right.
So Da Vinci ended up creating a copy for the king, and there are at least 2 other copies that we know of that were painted under his supervision.
Oh, wow.
These copies, while they're not perfect replicas, they offer valuable insights into the original, especially the areas that have been damaged over time.
So they're like missing pieces of the puzzle, helping us put it back together.
Exactly. They help us reconstruct the lost beauty of the original.
And they also tell us about Da Vinci's workshop, right?
They do. They raise intriguing questions about how his workshop operated and the role his assistants played in creating these massive works.
It's amazing to think that a painting as iconic and well-studied as The Last Supper still has mysteries.
It does, and that's the beauty of art,
Yeah.
It's a journey of discovery, a conversation between the past and present, between the artist's intention and our own interpretations.
It really is. We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
It really is. And, we've been talking about this painting for a while now.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm a little speechless.
I mean,
It's a lot to take in.
it is. We've covered so much. The historical context, the techniques, the symbolism, the damage and restoration.
Right.
Even the debate about whether it's more about the supper or the betrayal.
It's fascinating how it all connects, It
is.
It's like Da Vinci was creating this puzzle, leaving it to us to figure out the meaning. He wasn't just painting a scene.
Right.
He wanted to capture this moment frozen in time,
Yeah.
but with so much complexity that it keeps unfolding over the centuries.
And that moment is so human.
It is.
The shock, the confusion, the suspicion, the hurt.
You don't have to be a religious scholar to feel the weight of what's happening in that room.
You really don't. Da Vinci's genius is that connection to human drama, He makes you, the viewer, feel like you're right there with the apostles,
Right.
experiencing the betrayal firsthand. You're drawn into the story not just as an observer, but as a participant.
And it's funny, we started this deep dive talking about how The Last Supper was Da Vinci's comeback moment.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to prove himself.
Right? He was looking for patronage.
Exactly. But he ended up creating something that goes way beyond that.
He did. He created a masterpiece that still speaks to us centuries later.
It really does.
It sparks debate, it inspires awe, and it reminds us of the power of art. It's a testament to the idea that true artistry transcends time and circumstance.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into The Last Supper, we want to hear from you. What stood out to you most in this exploration? What questions do you have? What meaning do you find in this incredible work of art? We'd love to hear your thoughts.